Chelsea were deeply in love, the kind of couple everyone admired and envied. Their connection seemed unbreakable, bound by a love that felt destined. Ken was a banker, while Chelsea an influencer. Their lives intertwined beautifully, creating a perfect balance of passion and stability. Ken adored Chelsea. He went out of his way to make her feel cherished and appreciated. His gestures were thoughtful and sincere, reflecting the depth of his affection. He never missed an opportunity to remind her how much she meant to him. Chelsea basked in Ken's love and attention. She loved the gifts he bought her, the elaborate dinners he planned, and the small thoughtful surprises that made her feel so special. Her favorite was a handmade photo album filled with memories of their times together, each picture accompanied by a written note from Ken. However, Chelsea had a temper that sometimes overshadowed her sweetness. There were moments when minor disagreements would escalate into full blown arguments. During these times, her temper would flare, and Ken often found himself on the receiving end of her anger. But despite this, Ken's love for her never wavered. He believed in their bond and was determined to weather any storm that came in their way. One evening, Ken planned a romantic dinner at home. He cooked her favorite dish, set the tables with candles, and filled the room with soft music. Chelsea arrived, but instead of the usual excitement, she seemed irritable. Ken tried to lighten the mood, but a minor comment about her day led to an explosive argument. In a fit of rage, Chelsea slapped Ken. The room fell silent as both stood there stunned. Ken's cheek was red, but he swallowed his pride and reached out to her. He pulled her into his arms and whispered soothing words, trying to calm her down. Chelsea, realizing what she had done, instead of apologizing, decided to leave the house. Despite the hurt, Ken begged her to stay, promising that they could sort the problem out. This pattern continued over the months. Ken would shower Chelsea with love and affection, only to be met with her occasional outburst. He bought her gifts, took her on romantic getaway, and did everything he could to make her happy. Chelsea, while appreciative, grew accustomed to his generosity and became even more demanding. She rarely helped out with house chores, leaving Ken to cook and clean after a long day at work. Ken's friends often wondered why he put up with Chelsea's temper and laziness, but Ken believed that true love meant accepting someone despite their flaws. He was committed to making their relationship work no matter the cost. He held on to the moments when Chelsea was sweet and affectionate, believing that deep down she loved him just as much as he loved her. Despite the challenges, Ken's dedication to Chelsea never wavered. He supported her dreams, encouraged her creativity, and was always there to pick her up when she was feeling down. His unwavering love for Chelsea was the cornerstone of their relationship, and he was determined to make it work, believing that their true love was strong enough to overcome any obstacle. Chelsea's influencing lifestyle often made her stay at home, creating videos, content, and interacting with her followers. While Ken admired her dedication to her work, he couldn't help but feel frustrated with how it affected their home life. Chelsea's late night schedule meant she slept in well into the afternoon, leaving the household chores neglected. The dishes piled up in the sink, laundry went undone, and the house slowly fell into disarray. Ken would come home from work after a long day, exhausted, only to find no food in the house. Instead of resting, he would roll up his sleeve and begin to cook for them. It became a routine. Ken would walk through the door, his briefcase in his hands, hoping to smell dinner cooking or see some signs that Chelsea had taken care of the home. Instead, he would find her sleeping on the couch, engrossed in her phone or catching up on sleep. Despite his exhaustion, he would head to the kitchen, prepare a meal, and clean up afterwards. Ken never complained outright. He understood that Chelsea's work was demanding in its own way, but the imbalance in their responsibilities weighed heavily on him. He tried to have a gentle conversation with her about sharing the household chores, but these talks often ended in arguments. Chelsea would accuse him of not understanding her work and would become defensive. One particular evening stood out in Ken's memory. He had had an exceptional busy day at work, dealing with tight deadlines and demanding clients. As he walked into his house, he was met with silence. His living room was clustered with clothes and empty takeout containers. He made his way to the kitchen, only to find it in a similar state. His heart sank as he realized he would have to cook dinner once again. Ken sighed deeply, rolled up his sleeve, and started preparing noodles for himself. After cooking and eating, he tidied the kitchen and took his suitcase and dished the remaining noodles for his girlfriend. When he got to the room, he found her lying on the bed, pressing her phone. The bed was scattered. She hadn't arranged it since she woke up that morning. Ken's heart ached with the weight of unspoken frustration. He gave her her food, greeted her nicely, and went back to the living room to tidy it up. No doubt that Ken admired her dedication on her influencing life, but he couldn't shake off the feeling of being taken for granted. He longed for a partner who would share the load and support him just as much as he supported her. But despite the growing strain, Ken's love for Celsi remained strong. He believed in their bond and hoped that things would eventually change. He held on to the memories of the happy moments, the times when Celsi was sweet and affectionate, and believed that deep down she loved him just as much as he loved her. One fateful day, Celsi's cousin Sarah came to stay with them for a while. Sarah was everything Celsi was not: kind, considerate, and hardworking. She noticed how Ken was overburdened with the chores and cooking, while Celsi spent the days glued to her phone. Sarah couldn't stand seeing Ken so stressed and decided to help out. Sarah would cook dinner, clean the house, and even pack Ken's lunch for work. She made sure Ken had the warm meal waiting for him when he comes home. Celsi, meanwhile, continued her usual routine, often leaving the house, spending the night out and returning the next day. Whenever Ken complains, Celsi picks a fight, leaving Ken feeling frustrated and exhausted. Sarah saw the frustration on his face each time he and Celsi get into a fight, and still applauded him for being a gentleman and a sweetheart to always make peace with her. That's what true love is all about, she would always say. Sarah's presence brought a fresh air into Ken's life. She was always cheerful and went out of her way to make him smile just by taking care of the home and cooking. He noticed massive changes in the home as Sarah started living with them. Ken started to look forward to coming home, knowing that Sarah would be there to welcome him with a warm meal and a kind word. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, and Ken found himself drawn to her caring nature. As weeks went by, Ken and Sarah grew closer. They would spend hours talking, sharing their hopes and dreams. Sarah's genuine interest in Ken's life made him feel valued and appreciated, something he rarely felt with Celsi. They laughed together, cooked together, and supported each other in ways that felt natural and effortless. Celsi, oblivious to the growing bond between Ken and Sarah, continued her reckless behavior. She would disappear for days without a word, leaving Ken worried and anxious. On Ken's birthday, Celsi completely forgot, only to return the next day with a half-hearted apology. Sarah, on the other hand, had planned a surprise party for Ken after getting the notification from Facebook. She decorated the house, ordered cake, and cooked a delicious meal for him. Ken was touched by her thoughtfulness and realized how much he had come to care for her. One evening, after an argument between Celsi and Ken, she stormed out of the room and left the house, while Ken left the room to the living room. He found Sarah sitting on the couch watching TV, and he decided to open up about his frustration and the toll his relationship with Celsi was taking on him. Sarah listened patiently, offering comfort and understanding. In that moment, Ken realized how much Sarah had grown on him. Her kind words was something he loved to hear, and her cheerful nature was something he wanted to experience with her. It had been days since Celsi left the house, and Ken felt himself grappling with a mix of emotions. He had gotten used to being alone and enjoyed the quiet and peace that came with it. He continued to manage the household on his own, but the absence of Celsi left a void that was both freeing and unsettling. One evening, after a particularly stressful day at work, Ken sat down with Sarah in the living room and decided to talk to her about his relationship. Sarah, I love Celsi a lot. God knows I do. But she has pushed me to the last. It's been days since she left the house, and this is what she does whenever we have an argument. These few days, I've had time to think and I've realized how much I've grown to appreciate peace in a relationship. It is strange how I never noticed how turbulent things were until today. Sarah looked at Ken, her expression a mix of sympathy and concern. I can see how much you've been struggling, she said gently. It must be tough for you. Ken nodded. It's not just tough, it is exhausting. I am tired of the constant nagging, the slaps, and the insults. I have realized that I need a peaceful relationship, one where mutual respect and love are present, not just words, but action. Sarah's heart ached for Ken. She had witnessed his tireless efforts to maintain a relationship with Celsi despite the overwhelming challenges. Ken took a deep breath and continued. Sarah, I have grown to like you a lot. Being around you has shown me what a real, caring relationship can be. I can't continue with Celsi. It's wearing me down, and I feel like it might take me to an early grave. I need someone who will bring out the best in me, not just drain me. Sarah, you're so different from your cousin, very homely. I feel peace with you. I admire you a lot, Sarah. Sarah was speechless. After a moment of silence, she replied, I'm sorry about what you're going through in your relationship. I don't want you to be sorry for me, Sarah. I want you to show me the peace and comfort you bring. Let me into your heart, Sarah. Ken said, I can't betray Celsi. Whatever differences you will have can be settled. She's my cousin, and it feels wrong to be involved with you while she's still in the picture. Sarah, your cousin clearly is tired of me. She's tired of the relationship. It's been 5 days and she's not back yet. Who does that? This relationship has been over a long time ago. I've been the one saving it and I can't do that anymore. Without saying anything else, Sarah begged to leave to her room. Ken felt bad and went to his room. Sarah spent the night contemplating Ken's word. She knew that she can't be part of Ken's life while her sister was still in the picture. She called her sister that night and asked where she was, that Ken is worried sick about her. And Celsi replied, Tell him I am coming back home to pack my things. I am done with him. Without allowing Sarah to say a word, she called the call immediately. The next day, which was a weekend, Sarah and Ken had a heartfelt conversation. Sarah had thought about everything. She began, I've thought a lot about what you said, and I've realized that I can't be with you while you're still with Celsi. It won't be fair to either of us. Ken nodded in understanding. I appreciate your honesty, Sarah. I agree with you. It won't be right. I'll wait for Celsi to return so I can end things properly with her. Sarah smiled sadly. Thank you for your understanding. Ken nodded and wore a smile of relief. Thank you, Sarah. I'm hopeful. The next day, the house felt unusually tense. Ken, who had spent the morning lost in thought, was on bed when Celsi arrived to pack her remaining belongings. She moved about the room, packing her things. He had hoped for a quiet resolution, but it seemed the drama was far from over. The silence was interrupted when Celsi dragged her box out and called out Sarah. Sarah, who had been in the kitchen, rushed out. Sarah, go pack your bag. We need to get going, Celsi said. Sarah hesitated and asked, Where are we going to? And Celsi replied nonchalantly, Anywhere I take you to. Ken, who had followed her out of the room, couldn't remain passive any longer. Sarah is not going anywhere with you, he said. Celsi paused. She looked at him in surprise. And who are you to decide what's best for my cousin? She asked, clearly amused by his audacity. Ken took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. I am the one who finds Sarah attractive and want to start something beautiful with her, he declared. Sarah's heart raced at Ken's unexpected confession. She stood frozen, her face flushed with a mix of shock and excitement. Her feelings for Ken had grown over the past days, but she hadn't anticipated him expressing them so openly, especially in front of Celsi. Celsi's expression shifted from amusement to disbelief. Her mouth fell open as she stared at Ken, unable to process his bold statement. You are interested in my cousin? She asked, surprised. Yes, I am, Ken replied. I believe that we could have something special together. But before we explore that, I need to end things properly with you. Celsius' shock quickly turned into frustration. You can't just make demands like that. Sarah is my cousin, and I won't let you deceive her. Sarah knew it was time to step in, and she called out, Celsi, there is something I need to talk to you about. Her voice trembling. What is it? Celsi yelled. Sarah began. Ken is right. I have feelings for him too. I didn't mean for this to happen, but it did. And you told me yourself that you are done with him. Celsi couldn't believe her ears. You are in love with him? My ex? Yes, I am, Sarah responded. You both are a bunch of betrayals and you deserve yourselves, Celsi said as she walked away and banged the door at them. Ken and Sarah stood in silence as the door closed behind Celsi. The weight of the moment settled heavily upon them. Both felt a mix of relief and trepidation as they faced the uncertainty of the future together. Ken turned to Sarah, his eyes filled with a mix of hope and apprehension. Thank you so much for accepting me, Sarah. You are my peace and my comfort. I love you so much. Sarah smiled, her face pale but resolute. Ken embraced her, kissed her forehead, ready to navigate the next chapter of their lives with the hope of building something meaningful and lasting on the foundation of true love. Thank you so very much for watching. Hope you loved the story. Please do also like, share and subscribe to Substance TV for more amazing stories. See you guys in my next video. Until then, stay splendid.